One of the best when it comes to the draft and analyzing players, Brett Whitefield is with us today.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, here we go, everybody. Matt Dery with you on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Indeed, your team every day on a Wednesday, February 28th, and a Thursday, February 29th. Got a little leap year day tomorrow. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Combine continues in Indianapolis. Get some big names, including some Detroit guys talking about the Lions and maybe becoming Lions. We're going to get into all of that today with Brett Whitefield, the COO of Fantasy Points. Love that prospect guide, which is coming out soon, and also his data suite. We're going to talk to Brett momentarily, but first, Locked On Lions brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Dery Facebook fan page. And of course, thanks to those of you subscribing and watching on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. A couple of years ago, I was down in Allen Park. Brett, this was 4 or 5 years ago. We were standing there in the end zone, and Brett's watching players, and he's like, I really like that guy. I really like this guy. And all these guys that he's watching, he likes. Nobody else does. But then when they turn out well, we always give Mr. Whitefield credit, and he joins us today. Brett, good to see you.
Good to see you, man. It's been what, about a year since we've done this.
That's all on me. You should be mad at me, and I'm lucky that I still have you on the show. But COO of Fantasy Points, and your prospect guide comes out to what? Pretty soon.
I think like a month from today, actually. So yeah.
How can we make sure everybody gets their hands on it?
Fantasypoints.com. I don't know yet what the price is going to be. We're still setting that, but if you go set up a free account on fantasypoints.com, you'll get all the info you need about that. It very well may be free, actually. So stay tuned for that. 250 players, write-ups. I'm grinding the tape every day. I did a 16-hour tape watching session the other day. So it's the off season for most, but I never stop working, Matt. So we got it.
I love it. All right. How would you characterize 2023 and what you saw from the Lions, and how much fun was that?
Yeah, for me, it was as expected, right? Like, I think they were right on I think I predicted them for like 11 wins. So they won the division. The playoff wins were really nice. I think what was really cool for me that, we knew the offense would be good. We knew that would be a strong point. I love the way they, got Jahmyr Gibbs involved as the season went on. But for me, I thought it was the way the defense molded, like around week 14, 15. They just completely kind of changed their identity, who they are. And Aaron Glenn realized finally he didn't have the horses to do what he was trying to do, and went with that real blitz heavy approach. They got aggressive. They were manufacturing pressure. And then when they weren't manufacturing pressure, they were manufacturing the illusion of pressure. And I think it really had an impact. I know that's not the consensus opinion. They gave up big games to all these receivers, but you could see the defense became very opportunistic. They got a lot more stops. They were turning the ball over, sacks, yada, yada, yada. Those plays changed games. And even though they were still giving up a lot of yards, it didn't result in a lot of points. So I thought that was the biggest takeaway for me, is I think Aaron Glenn proved to me that he actually can get this done, especially if we give him some more weapons.
It's interesting. You bring up the defense and kind of making changes in terms of how he used players. And I think it probably is highlighted by Ife Melifonwu, who went from, he's on the team, to, oh my gosh, he's as good a blitzing safety as there is in the game. I mean, that's probably the prime example, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ife, when they drafted him, that was the allure, this freak athlete guy. He's a corner at the time, but like he had that hybrid capability. We kind of knew that with his tape in college. And so getting him to this point where he is an elite line of scrimmage level safety, and I think he's got some coverage chops too, Matt. Like, I think that's what makes him so attractive, is he can kind of do it all, and he's a really good partner to Kirby Joseph back there.
Interesting. Yesterday, and I had this on the show, and I've been getting lambasted by a few Packer fans, but Brian Gutekunst, the GM of Green Bay, kind of saying, oh yeah, we don't hang division banners here, when asked about chasing the Lions. Do you view for next year Detroit and Green Bay fighting it out? Do you think the Lions are much better than the Packers? Do you think Minnesota, if Cousins comes back, leapfrogs Green Bay? How do you kind of look at the division?
I think foundationally the Lions are in a better place than the Packers, but they have a good roster. They have some aging vets they're going to have to make decisions on, obviously. I saw that they restructured Rashawn Gary yesterday to free up some cap space. But I mean, if you're a Lions fan, you got to be a little scared. It seems like they pulled the magic trick again with the quarterback situation and Jordan Love. This guy sat for 4 years, and in his 5th year, he kind of has his little breakout performance. So that is, it did look like the division was the Lions to take for the next 5 years, and it doesn't look like that's going to be true. So I do see some type of battle. The Lions still should be the favorite, in my opinion, by a good margin. But I do think the Packers are competitive. They'll probably compete for the playoffs in one of those wild card spots for sure.
Interesting. We're talking to Brett Whitefield yesterday. Dan Campbell was asked about Jameson Williams, and he said, "Hey, look, I see a great future for him, and it's taken some time, and maybe more time than we thought. But he's easing his way in. It's almost like they're talking about a kid that they took in the 6th round that they're taking a flyer on when he was a 1st-round pick. How do you view how kind of they are utilizing him, and do you view year 3 as being this big breakout for him?"
Yeah, I don't. It's tough to call a big breakout because like Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're so involved in the offense. It's like how much meat is there going to be left to give to Jameson? What I will say though is Jameson down the stretch did really impress me. I did see development. Like the route running got a lot better, a lot more precise. You could see the trust factor with Goff building. There was games where JMO was heavily featured in the short part of the field, which we never saw prior to that. I mean, we're talking, what do you have, like a couple 5-6 catch games where it amounted for 47, 50 yards. JMO became a possession receiver. And that's obviously not why you drafted him and what you want to use him for. But the fact that he can do that when the game script calls for it is good to me. There was one play, I think in the Tampa Bay game, where Goff threw a deep hitch to him with like really good anticipation. If Goff's doing that, that shows you there's a trust level that's built there that wasn't there before. And I think it was like a 25-yard gain. So, yeah, I was really impressed with JMO. And obviously, he still has the explosiveness. He still has all of that to go with it. So, definitely like the development.
What about needs? When and obviously all these websites you do it, PFF, everybody says, all right, Detroit Lions needs. What are your maybe top 3?
Top 3 needs? Gosh, I would say corner, defensive line. I'm lumping that into one group so I don't have to use 2 slots on it, but they need one of each at least.
Yeah.
And then offensive line.
Are you interesting? Holmes says, and both Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes saying, re-signing our own players is such a priority. Mm-hmm. How do you view the market for Jonah Jackson and maybe even Graham Glasgow?
Yeah, I would be curious to know if Jonah's lumped into that for Brad when he's talking about re-signing their own players. When I think of that, I'm thinking, Amon-Ra, obviously, Jared Goff, obviously, maybe even Decker, moving some money around with Decker to get him extended and save some money this year. Aleem McNeil's come in. They got to have some money earmarked for Panay and Aiden as well. That's the group I'm thinking of. Ife Melifonwu. I don't necessarily go right to Jonah Jackson. I think Graham would be great to re-sign. I think Jonah, it sounds like he's going to ask for too much money. I think that's like for where the Lions sit at 29 in the draft. If you wanted to replace Jonah Jackson, you could probably upgrade that spot actually with the pick at 29 there. So I don't necessarily see it as a priority.
Brett Whitefield with us, COO of Fantasy Points. Go to fantasypoints.com. He's going to have his prospect guide out shortly, as he talked about. Let's get into some of the players, both in free agency that he likes and also in the draft, because that's what Brett is so good at. We will do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. But first, our friends at FanDuel are back. It is basketball season. We are heavy into the NBA right now. Big slate tonight on a Wednesday night. Of course, the Thursday night TNT games tomorrow. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you had money down on the Pistons last night as a road dog in Chicago, you did well. Pistons won that basketball game. Always love beating the Bulls and their goofball radio guy, because right now, new customers, you want to bet some money, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And we got to tell you about our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, they have got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items apply. Exclusions apply. Only eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. And back with Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points, guru when it comes to dissecting prospects. Brett, how's the fam, by the way? I know how many, where are we up to? 5 kids now? 3, 4? Where are we?
We're 4, right in between. Yeah. Working on the NBA team, you know.
I love it, but glad everybody's good. All right, listen, free agency. Lions' approach has always been a little conservative, smart. Montgomery, $6 million. Re-signing Anzalone, not for a lot of money. Cam Sutton got what, 10, 11 million, wasn't number one corner money. Do you see this being a team that goes and gets a L'Jarius Sneed, goes and gets a Brian Burns, or are they going to play kind of the fit game and keep it conservative? What's your sense on that?
It is really hard to say, Matt. Like, sometimes the fan in me wants to like yearn for something that I just don't think is realistic. I would love for them to go get L'Jarius Sneed. It sounds like they'd have to trade for him at this point, right? He's probably the one guy, the one corner in this league that fits what Glenn does. I mean, to a T, man. It's incredible. So I would love that. I don't see them making a splash that big. He'd probably become the highest paid corner in the NFL. So I don't know if they're willing to do that, but maybe a shorter term contract with like a Danielle Hunter. I know there was rumors they tried to trade for him at the deadline, and Minnesota was unfortunately just winning too many games to make that happen. But I mean, Danielle would be great because I don't think it would take a lot of, like, it wouldn't be a big investment in terms of years. So when we talked earlier about protecting those guys we want to extend, right, like Aiden and Panay, it's like you're going to need some cap space available when that time comes. And so Danielle would probably come in at like a 3-year deal, right? And truthfully, a 3-year deal in the NFL is only a 2-year deal now. So I think that's the kind of deal they should be looking for. Another guy I think of is maybe like a Bryce Huff, pass rush specialist from the Jets. That's really all he does. He doesn't really play the run. Doesn't feel like a Dan Campbell guy necessarily, but if they really value adding some pass rush, he's a guy who might not be as expensive as some of these other top flight guys, but could provide a lot of value.
Yeah, I saw the other day somebody said, you could you wait it out a little bit and you get that tier guy, the second or third tier guy, and they turn into what James Houston kind of surprised them with, what Romeo Okwara kind of surprised them with a few years ago, not this past year. What Charles Harris did was a surprise and then kind of petered out. But it's interesting you bring up some of the needs we talked about. Cornerback, I mean, Sutton, you'd figure back, obviously Brian Branch, and then it's anybody's guess. So you have to figure they're going to sign a free agent corner and draft one too, right?
Yep. Yeah, they need a couple corners. They need a couple edge defenders as well with both Okwaras are gone. You've got Charles Harris is gone. So there's a lot of room. I wonder if they'll keep Kaminsky. I know that's complete speculation on my part, but like
that's $5 million they could be saving if they don't.
Yeah, exactly. He's due a big cap hit. I don't think he really developed maybe the way they had hoped into his hybrid role. He didn't play any better last year than he did the year before, and so he's due a big pay bump. So I'm not sure that that's a great situation for them. They got to add multiple bodies though. Probably like 5 guys total on defense, a D tackle, a couple edge guys, and a couple corners. So I mean, they're going to have to do something in free agency. To your point, it's probably going to be more of that mid tier than the upper tier.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I also think somebody was talking about Zadarius Smith the other day. Maybe he would take less to come to Detroit and leave Cleveland. Somebody like that, but he's more upper tier than maybe what they've gotten in the past. Like when I mentioned Kaminsky, Charles Harris. That says something about this organization, though. If a guy's willing to maybe take less to come to Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. And Zadarius he'd be a good fit. I mean, that'd be another, just like Danielle, that'd be a shorter term contract, maybe a 1 or 2 year deal where you're not tying up a lot of money long term. So I actually like that idea.
Brett Whitefield with us from Fantasy Points, the COO. As far as the draft goes, it's weird, Brett. For the past few years, you and I talked last year. All right, what can they do at 12? And you pick players out. Yeah, you could still do it at 29, but it's better to be in this spot drafting that late. But it's hard to certainly know what 28 players are going to go in front of them at that number.
Yeah, and for that reason, I brought a wide array of names to the table.
I love it. Well, where are you starting? I'm a Cooper DeJean guy. If he somehow slid to 29, my God, I would sprint to the table to the podium to do that. But
yeah,
give me some names at the top of your list at 29 if they sort of fell there.
Yeah, since you brought up Cooper, let's stick with corner, Matt. So I think it seems unrealistic, right? We're talking about it like, oh, maybe Cooper DeJean is there. It's the reality is there's like 5 or 6 of these top guys. They're not all going to go before the Lions pick. So they're going to get a shot at a Cooper DeJean, an Ennis Rakestraw. I do think Quinyon Mitchell's probably a lock to go in the top 15. He's my guy. Rakestraw would be the other guy I really, really like at 29. He seems like, I actually wrote in his scouting profile that there isn't a more Dan Campbell player in this entire draft than Ennis Rakestraw, a corner that is going to come up and just smack you in the mouth. Like, everything they loved about Devin Witherspoon last year, that Rakestraw has those qualities as well, except he's more of a true outside corner. So I think it'd be a really good fit. Your guy Cooper is awesome too, and the versatility in multiple that he would bring to the table is excellent. So, obviously they need outside corner, but he's not limited to only being an outside corner. He could play in the slot. He could play safety. Like, truly the most versatile defensive back in this class by a mile. And I also think he's a lot more athletic than people realize. I think he had the fastest GPS clock time at the Senior Bowl this year. So I have no issues with his long speed.
Are you a Kool-Aid McKinstry fan?
I'm not, actually. If 29, like, if he's the guy that they like, I trust the regime enough. Like, if they're like, he's a football guy, he's our dude, that it is what it is. But like, he gave up a lot in coverage the last couple seasons compared to his counterpart in Terry and Arnold. I think Kool-Aid was the earlier name. He's a 5-star prospect. So people have been stuck on him for a couple of years as being this elite cornerback prospect, and I just don't see it. The Alabama guys, the one nice thing about them, I'll say though, is like they are NFL ready typically. That sure. Saban defense is not easy to figure out. If you can play in that, you can pretty much play in the NFL anywhere.
Mel Kiper Jr. in today's mock draft had TJ Tampa from Iowa State. Is that a reach? What do you think?
No, I don't. Like, here's the one thing about corners too. The corner board for the public doesn't really shake out till after the combine. So the NFL teams have their evaluations already done, but like we're late catching up, because the reality is like, as an analyst, you don't want to hedge, you don't want to hedge on a corner who then ends up running a 4.6 at the combine. So you're kind of waiting. There's like the most speed dependent position in the NFL. So you're kind of waiting for them to check those boxes before you move guys around. I think of like Eric Stokes a couple years back. Like, he was on nobody's radar as a first round pick. I think everyone had him in the 3rd round. The dude goes and blazes a 4.2 something, checks that box. Next thing you know, the Packers take him in the 1st round. So it is what it is. I do think corners, the whole corner board will get reshuffled after the combine. You asked me about TJ Tampa specifically. This is another guy I do think is a Dan Campbell type of player. All those physical, the real gritty mentality thing that Rakestraw has, TJ Tampa also has. He's a very physical corner, almost physical to a fault, actually. Like, the top of stems, he's a little grabby, a little physical. He's going to draw flags here and there, but he is sticky in coverage, and he will come up and defend the run, and that's something that this team very, very much values.
Oh, no question about it. It's so funny you talked about the combine. I mean, it was a couple of years ago, Malik Willis. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's the greatest combine ever, threw the ball 70 yards. He's so fast. He can't play. He cannot play.
Yeah, and I'll give Malik a little bit of a break. To Tennessee Titans, quarterback has looked good on that team. Tannehill's been terrible. Levis was terrible. I think they had some fundamental issues going on in that offense.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any question about it. Interesting. So today, Darius Robinson spoke to the media and was like, "Oh my God, if I could come home and play for the Lions, and I'm from Canton, this would be the greatest thing ever." A lot of my listeners and viewers are real bullish on him. How about you?
Yeah. So what's funny is I knew he was from Michigan. I actually am in Canton currently, and I didn't realize he had played at Canton High School. So when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, dang!" And before that, I was really really very much a Darius Robinson fan. This is another Dan Campbell identity guy. He is as gritty as it gets, but he plays with that certain type of power that they look for in their defensive linemen. I don't know if you've noticed, Matt, but other than James Houston, most of their DNs are bigger, physical, strong, heavy-handed type of guys. Not a lot of like edge benders, so to speak. So
Right.
he
Yeah.
definitely fits the mold there. I'd be curious to see what they would do with him because he is like a tweener. He's long, super long, and like 290-ish pounds. I think he's 286 at the Senior Bowl. I'd be really curious if they view him as an interior guy or an edge defender, or maybe they're playing more odd fronts and he's stacking over a tackle. Not really sure, but I love the fit. I mean, he's a really good pass rusher when given the opportunity. He played in that Missouri front, which is super weird. 3 down linemen, and he's basically two-gapping, every single snap. And pass rush is like not something they do with their D linemen. It's all manufactured via blitz, etc. So when he was given the opportunity, rushing from the edge, he was dominant, like absolutely dominant. He went down to Mobile, tore up the whole Senior Bowl, and that was a really good offensive line class there this year too. So I'm really big on Darius Robinson. That would be a slam dunk at 29. My gut is telling me he's not going to be there at 29 though. But
who else could be there as far as interior D linemen or edges in your mind at 29, if that's the route Brad Holmes wants to go?
Yeah, Chris Braswell would be an edge, Alabama guy, length, power for days. He's got a little more bend to him than Robinson. He's a little lighter in the pants as well, but he can play in space really well. And if you remember what they were doing at the end of the year, dropping some of those guys off into coverage, he really thrived in that Alabama system that does a lot of that as well. He played in the shadow of Will Anderson and oh my gosh, Dallas Turner. He played in the shadow of Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, so he's kind of the unheralded guy there, but he's a really good player. He could also be like a trade back candidate because I think 29 might be a little early for him, but on the interior side, like a Tavondre Sweat, if they wanted to add just like a big meaty body. I know he's kind of a Broderick Martin repeat. I do think Tavondre is going to go in the first round. He's not being mocked there currently, but the reality is like guys his size that move like he does don't go out of the first round. So, Mozzie Smith was that example last year. I was early on him, calling him a first rounder. He went in the first round. I think Sweat ends up in the first round. What about like a trade up, Matt? Are you interested in that at all? Because I got a trade up guy for you.
Please, let's hear it. I love that.
Johnny Newton, D tackle from Illinois. In my time evaluating prospects, which this is my 9th season evaluating prospects, I've never seen an interior defender in the draft with a more polished pass rush arsenal than Johnny Newton.
Wow.
Absolutely unbelievable. He's got a primary move. It's a club swim, and it is devastating. And he's got 3 or 4 different counters off of that move. And he just wrecks opposing offensive lines. And he did it from a really weird alignment. He was playing 4-eye all last year, which is like inside shade of the tackles. He wasn't playing like a true 3 technique role, which means he has a longer distance to travel in order to beat the guard he's going against. So really, really impressive stuff from him. So big fan of his game. If the Lions are considering a trade up, I think that would be the perfect guy to go get.
So no way he's last into 29 in your mind.
No, I think he's a top 20 guy probably.
Wow. More with Brett Whitefield next. I do want to ask him too about the Lions grades that came out today, but we'll also go on the offensive side of the ball a little bit with Brett next, right here on Locked On Lions on a Wednesday. How about our friends at BetterHelp? Locked On Lions today is sponsored by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. And that's why you might want to talk to somebody. Might want to get some help and talk to a therapist, and just somebody neutral in your corner that you can kind of spill your guts out to sometimes, and it makes you feel a whole lot better. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and also suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. The great thing about BetterHelp is you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Brett Whitefield with us, COO of Fantasy Points. Check out his prospect guide coming out in a couple of weeks. A lot of people have mentioned guards. You mentioned before about if Jackson or Glasgow leave. As far as on the offensive line at 29 or even a trade up, what do you see there, Brett, for the Lions?
Yeah, the one guy that really stands out to me, and again, like when you're picking at 29, Matt, like there's not 29 first round graded players in this draft. I'm probably going to end up with 22, which means you're going to need a little bit of luck to get a first round graded player at 29. That said, a guy I have my eyes set on is Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State.
Yeah.
Interior guy. Well, actually, he started 2 years at left tackle and then moved to the interior of that offensive line. So he has a ton of versatility. I know some people have some athletic concerns. I don't really see it if he's playing on the interior side of the ball. I mean, he's very fluid mover, very strong at the point of attack, and he's got a really, really high football IQ. I think he's a plug and play day one starter at pretty much, any of the three interior spots on the offensive line. Could even, in a pinch, play tackle if you needed him to, because he's got over 1,500 snaps playing offensive tackle. So he's the guy I kind of have penciled in. Like, if everything goes to crap, you can't get your corner, can't get a D lineman there, just go for the layup with Cooper Beebe.
It's interesting. Brad Holmes surprised us last year and took a running back at 12 and a middle linebacker at 18, and it worked out. All right, he was right. Do you see a chance of any kind of surprise where Brad Holmes says, "Hey, look, there's a receiver at 29," or something crazy like that, or do you think this will be more needs based than anything else, based on the fact that they've got depth now on this roster?
So, I mean, Josh Reynolds is a free agent, right?
Yeah.
So there's a chance, if we don't view Jameson as a high volume guy ever, you've got this pending contract situation with Amon-Ra. Yeah, I think there's a chance for sure they could go receiver at 29, especially in a draft where you have like 5 or 6 really good X receivers, where we haven't seen a receiver group like this in like 3 or 4 years, where there's like multiple guys who can play on the boundary. They're big and physical, and that's what they're losing in Josh Reynolds. He is their X receiver. So a guy like, Keon Coleman, I know the local guys will know who that is. He played at Michigan State, played basketball at Michigan State. And Adonai Mitchell from Texas is another guy who's that true X receiver type. And if they wanted to go outside the box, Matt, and go with someone who has a little more Amon-Ra St. Brown overlap, there's a bunch of guys that do that. Ladd McConkey, Ricky Purcell, Roman Wilson, another local guy. And that would add just a whole nother dynamic to the offense that I think would be great. This is a really, really exceptional wide receiver class. I kind of, in some way, I expect them to come out of the draft with at least one of them, whether that's first round or 7th round. They need to dip into that pool, though.
By the way, give me a yes or no. Are you a JJ McCarthy fan at the next level?
He is my QB1, Matt.
QB1?
QB1.
Really? Oh, so I didn't expect to go here with you.
I can give you the 60-second cliff notes.
QB1. Holy hell. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're the Bears, you would take him at number 1?
I would, and I mocked it that way as well in my recent mock draft.
I love this. I love
this. For it, obviously, but
well, yeah, but you got to go out on a limb a little bit. You can't just be like everybody else. But so tell me why. That's awesome.
So JJ is the most. So when we talk about floor and ceiling for quarterbacks, to me, a guy with a high floor is somebody who does QB-centric things really well. So he's good pre-snap. He's good post-snap. He's got exceptional footwork in the pocket. He can run an offense. He throws on schedule, on rhythm. He can throw with anticipation and accuracy and zip. JJ does all of those things at the highest level in this draft, and it's not even remotely close. The other 3 guys we're talking about, they're like, especially Caleb Williams and Drake May, they don't play on schedule. Everything Caleb Williams does is a figment of your imagination. Like, it's just they're like, you draw up a play, he doesn't run the play that's called. He is not NFL ready. He's on the Zach Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Johnny Manziel spectrum of playmaker. Wow. It could work out. The traits are super high level. But for me, I think JJ by far has the highest floor in this draft. And you don't have to sacrifice ceiling with him, because I think he's an exceptional athlete, and I think he's got a really, really good arm. He might have a better arm than, I'm trying to think of a good comp for him in the draft. Like, he's got a better arm than Joe Burrow. I think his arm is comparable to a Justin Herbert, not quite a Josh Allen level arm, but in that Justin Herbert spectrum. So I typically with these high floor guys, you have to sacrifice some type of ceiling. With JJ, you don't. So you're getting that high floor, that ready-made quarterback who's played in a pro-style offense. He's won at a high level. By the way, Matt, do you know the NFL actually really cares about winning, like, a lot?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's kind of funny. We forget that when evaluating quarterbacks, but since like 2009, the Stafford year, every single quarterback minus Jared Goff has competed. They were within 1 game of a national championship. You can't say that for Caleb Williams. You can't say that for Drake May. You can't say that for Jaden Daniels, but you can say that for JJ McCarthy. He won one. So
Brett Whitefield, I love it. Coming in hot. All right. Lions report card from the NFLPA on at theathletic.com today said that with all the things that there are categories, treatment of facilities, food and cafeteria, locker room, coach, owner, all this, the Lions came in at number 13. Their highest grade, Brett, was the head coach, who got an A+, which is third out of 32 teams. Their lowest grade was the nutritionist dietitian, which was a C+, 25 out of 32. Did anything jump out at you that surprises you?
yeah, I just trying to figure out why Isaiah Buggs is allowed to vote.
That's probably true if they did this before they shipped him out. Ownership, by the way, got a B-, which surprised me. I thought it'd be higher than that.
Yeah, I do too. And I know someone immediately tweeted like there was a correlation between owners that bought the team and owners that inherited the team. All of the owners that inherited their team had lower grades than people who bought the team. So I think maybe there's some, I don't know, some, I guess, anti-nepotism thing going on there. Perhaps. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it is interesting that was a correlation to me. And maybe the Ford family just has a bad reputation from years past, even though I don't think, Sheila has anything to do with that.
Well, Clark Hunt finished 32 out of 30, finished last for owners, and his teams just won the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. So,
right.
But it's kind of crazy. Brett, this was awesome. I want to get your thoughts post combine and certainly have you back for the draft. But thanks again.
Thank you, Matt.
Brett Whitefield with us, Fantasy Points. Go to Twitter at BG Whitefield. Follow him right now on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions. Back again tomorrow.